Doot 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 theme song. Hey everybody, welcome back to Make Better. I'm your host Nick 101, and you may or may not have a guest appearance by Lulu the Loud. She is currently in her kennel. I didn't explain in a previous episode, but hearing her bark in the background. So what it is she, it goes into her kennel whenever we leave the house, so she doesn't get herself into trouble. And we make sure that we never leave her in there for longer than like 4 hours tops. My girl goes and lets her out during lunchtime, and then I come home and sometimes, but not always, but sometimes she is barking when we get home. And so the important thing to do there is to not immediately let her out. I know that I glanced over and made sure that she didn't pee or poop in the kennel, because obviously that would be cruel to leave her in there. But if she's barking to get let out, well, she needs to learn that that's not going to work. So if she is barking when we get home, as long as it has, not been a long time, like let's say something, bad happened, the car broke down, she's in the kennel for like 8 hours, and then we get home and she's barking. Well, yeah, okay, that's understandable. I would let her out. But if she's barking just to get let out, then nope, she has to stay in there for a little bit longer. And when she's quiet, then I will go let her out. So hopefully by the time this podcast is done, she will be quiet. I'll let her out, and then she'll understand. Okay, and then maybe next time when she barks, it takes less time to bark. There she goes. So I have to wait for at least a good uh, couple seconds to a few minutes worth of quiet. So it might seem cruel that I'm having her stay in the kennel while Daddy's home, but this is her training, and sometimes that's some of the hardest stuff. So oftentimes the dog's barking, and then so people will yell back, like "Shut up in there! No barking! Knock it off!" Well, that's going to encourage the dog to bark more, because now you just acknowledge that you did in fact hear them. So they're like, okay, well, you did hear me, but you're not letting me out, so maybe I just have to bark harder and louder, and that's going to only encourage them to be more of a barker in the kennel. So that's just a little, dog training and lesson right there. So believe it or not, that is still positive dog training. It seems like a negative thing to do to a dog, but it's actually positive, because we don't. See, it's been a bit. I'm a bit rusty. So there's positive reinforcement, which is when you give it a treat. Um, I think it's something like negative punishment, which sounds bad, but it's actually still part of positive dog training. I'm going to shut up until I can remember exactly what I'm trying to say here. But technically, I'm not zapping her. I'm not doing anything negative to her. I'm just failing to give her the positive until the negative behavior is. Anyway, so long story short, I this weekend I actually ended up talking to somebody, and I happened to mention just off the cuff that I happen to be a dog trainer at one point. She asked me some advice, and I, of course, went into a 30-minute rant about some of the stuff she should do to help with the dog. I remember what a passion I had about it, and I remember I was hemming and hawing and going back and forth about whether or not I wanted to do dog training videos on my podcast, or if I wanted to maybe start doing that, online, like a live Zoom chat or whatever, and actually get paid for it. But anyway, the point is, I would do it for free, just like most other things. So I do think that I want to start putting out dog training videos, because I feel like just me doing weekly updates is more of a video journal. And if that's the case, then why should I have it be public? That should just be more of a private thing to check in with myself. So if I'm going to be having one, it really should be for something. So when I started, and it was with um, dog tips and animal tips, that made sense. But now that I've kind of, run low on ideas for those videos, Lord knows I was trying. It feels narcissistic. Maybe isn't the right word, but it just feels like, who am I doing this for if I'm not doing anything helpful to put out in the universe? So, yeah, I've decided I should probably do some dog training videos. Maybe do some with Lilu and her little pen that we have for her to do zoomies in. But yeah, that's just basically what I've been thinking. But anyway, it was a pretty cool, weekend, because we were going to the local shops, which we like to do on the weekend to help support, the local community. And so that's when I ended up getting into that conversation. Is when we were. It was one of those, vans that was converted into a little shop. So they had, fresh cider donuts, handmade lemonade, and you know, decent tea. My girl had, And it was good. It was a lot of fun. Had a lot of chatting. Lily got to meet a lot of people. We try to do that as often as we can, just so that she remembers not to get too excited and try jumping up, and just be nice and gentle to everybody. Um, she does that thing where it's like, if we're giving her a treat, she knows to be gentle, and my girl's really good about getting her to do that, like on command, like does a bunch of tricks, and then she goes, okay, now gentle. But with strangers, she gets excited, and sometimes gets to the finger a little bit, not a nip, but just doesn't know where the hand where the treat ends and the hand begins. So we try and have other people do tricks for her, and then give the treat and have her gently take it. So that was nice. And then yesterday was fun. We didn't end up getting as much done inside and out as we wanted to, because we ended up, or at least I did. Well, yeah, no, she did a little bit too, but we basically ended up doing some target practice with bows, with the neighbors, and then had dinner together, and played some Cards Against Humanity, had a couple of drinks, and it was a awesome time. And yeah, there should be potentially snowfall today, and it sucks because I did lose an arrow, and I just went with a weed whacker and tried looking for it before the sun went down, and I couldn't find it. I'm hoping that the snow thaws so that I can get another go around, because I would like to get the arrow back so that it doesn't just rust in the ground over the winter. But so yeah, so unfortunately some choring had to be put to the wayside, but chores will always be there. Um, it's especially now that it isn't like we're on the tail end of COVID. It feels like COVID's always going to be around, but now that we're not huddling quarantines and like scared to hug people again, it is nice being able to just do an impromptu social thing like that, which was nice. Plus, just doing something like shooting the bow, and especially with somebody that knows what they're doing, so you can get like some tips, tricks, and kind of get slightly better at it. Um, so I have a just regular old recurve bow that was gifted to me, which I was very grateful for. But he let me have a shot at his compound, and I get how come it's you know you know why people would prefer it over the recurve. It's a lot less, because the recurve has nothing besides a knock. I don't have any sights or anything like that, so it's really just from muscle memory and trying to be as consistent as possible, get that grouping in, and then try to visually adjust using just like the end of the arrow. So it's with the compound, and when you have the sightings that you can dial in and stuff, it's like, oh yeah, you can get much more accurate, much faster. So I get the appeal, and I might invest in one at some point, but it definitely was fun to just reminded me back in the old Boy Scout days, doing archery, which at the time, back when I was a Boy Scout, I thought I remember being pretty decent at it. But then you get 2 decades in between, and obviously you get a little rusty. So it was nice being able to see how much of that I still had left. Definitely need to invest in a glove though, because I do not have any calluses on these fingers. And I was thinking about it, and it was hilarious that it's just like, what the heck. So if you like guitar, you're gonna get calluses on that hand. If you like the bow hunting, you're gonna get the calluses on that hand. It's like, God, gosh darn it, can't they just have the calluses go on the same hand for both? So if you just practice both at any given time, you won't need to have any extra gloves, because you can just basically have a natural glove. Anyway, because basically, like, if I end up getting to the point where I'm like practicing both a lot, then both hands are gonna have like rough spots, and you want to have soft hands for other stuff. So I don't know what I'm saying. But basically, it was a good weekend, and it's getting colder, so it would be nice to get good enough that if I have a decent enough backdrop, I could maybe start doing stuff inside. But you really do, I guess ideally want to do like shooting at 20 yards, and there's not really a straightaway spot in my house that I could just shoot for 20 yards, and I really would just feel so bad if I ended up putting like a hole in the wall or something. So it should still always be an outdoor activity with a nice natural land backdrop. But um, I do know plenty of people that do practice inside the house as well if they have the setup for it. But yeah, long story short, that was nice. Breaking out the old bow, and then later on the old Cards Against Humanity. It drives me nuts that it can't be a two-person game because otherwise me and her would probably be playing it, a lot more often. But instead, you got to wait till you have at least one guest, and preferably two guests because after a couple of hands and then there's only three people, you can pretty much kind of figure out who each card was coming from. I thought it was hilarious because I always think that I'm a funny guy, and I usually end up doing horrible at Cards Against Humanity. So maybe I'm just funny to myself, and subjectively, it's not the case. But by the end, I had at least one of them dialed in, and I was pretty consistently getting cards from one of them. Um, but yeah, so that's one where it's I like how I never mind losing. I mean, especially in games like that where it isn't really competitive. It is in a way because it's just like, oh man, how come he keeps on getting all the funny cards? But um, yeah, it's just a blast to see how silly and ridiculous. I think this one is the absurd box, the absurd edition one. I think we have like a blue one, and this is the absurd one. So it has really ridiculously random and silly stuff. So that was a fun expansion pack. I got to get the big box so I can mix them all in together and have a little bit more variety. But anyway, so that's about it. Like I said, I'm planning on making better by actually doing the dog training videos like I've been hemming and hawing over. Having a decent weekend, going out, being social, getting stuff done, having fun as well as trying to be responsible. So um, you got to have a balance. You got to have a balance. So, and thankfully we didn't go so hard in the paint that I was, I didn't have a hangover or anything the next morning. Did have a bit of a neck pain, but that was just because I passed out on the couch a little bit before getting up and actually getting to bed for the full rest. So, drink your water, people. Eat something. Keep tabs on how much you're having, and definitely drink your water. It makes a huge difference. I don't remember the last time in a long time that I've actually had a hangover because I've been anytime I am drinking, I'm doing it like that. So that's definitely the best advice I could give if you want to make sure that you're still drinking but responsibly. To the point where you're not hurting yourself or your career or others. But I'm grateful, I guess, that I never was a mean drunk. Now the meanest the meanest I used to be was sober. Like if I was stone cold sober back in my 20s, and like I stood up and I hit my head on a cabinet that I had opened, I would be punching the cabinet, taking it out on the inanimate object, and it was my own fault. And I don't do that anymore. I've got my anger in control. But it's funny. It's like if I was drunk and the same thing happened, I would barely feel it. I would laugh at myself for being an idiot. So these people that get mean when they get drunk, it's unfortunate that that's how the chemical affects them. But everything affects everybody differently. So just be grateful for the little things like that. And I think that should be about enough. I appreciate you, and I'll see you again later.